I'm Tom Johnson, Thomas Johnson, Antique Furniture Restoration in Gorham, Maine. This is a nice old tilt-top table. It's got quite a few things wrong with it. I'll need to re-glue this leg. I'm not sure if this is an antique or not, but I think I'll find out more when I take that leg off. And of course, as you can see, the top is cracked. This really nice medallion has got some loose areas on it. And then of course, with all this water damage, I'll have to refinish it. It's interesting how someone put an extra screw in here on the other side of the crack in the top, I guess in an effort to fix it. There's also something along here. I don't know if it's adhesive or putty or what. It's important to mark these. I want to get them right back where they were. I look for other marks, but they have not been marked, so I'll mark them. Well, it just kind of looks like crusty hide glue or something. Let's see. Whatever it is, it's kind of flaking right off. It's not like it's a perfect joint, but I think it'll hold, and it will have some support from underneath also. Alright, now I'll see if I can re-glue this leg. Alright, I think I'll try getting a wedge in there. Now I'll just scrape this old glue out. Chips off pretty easily. Alright, now I just got to glue the medallion in the top here. Yeah, this seems like it's mostly down there. Obviously there's a few loose places here. I think what I'm going to do is heat this up some with the heat gun and then just work some glue into these areas and clamp it down. This block will work as a platen on the underside of the table, and then I've got another block for the top. Alright. That seems like it's down nice and flat. Now I've got a little piece of wood missing here, and I think that it's just too small to try to cut a piece of wood for. I'm going to just fill that with some wood putty and touch it up. So I'm filling that little void with putty. And my seam along here has got some openings too, so I'm going to go ahead and use the wood putty on that before I sand this down. I don't think I need to strip this. There's very little finish on it. It needs a good sanding because of the extensive water damage. My seam isn't perfect either, so that's got to be leveled off. And so I'll let this putty dry and then I'll start sanding. I can pretty quickly see that this wood is going to be really beautiful. Okay, I've sanded this all the way really well to 220, and it turns out to be made of cherry, but I do have a problem here. I've got one of the cherry boards is substantially lighter than the others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape off the light board with plastic packing tape and then give 2 coats of finish to the rest of the table. The reason I'm using plastic tape is because that's going to give me the cleanest, sharpest edge along this joint and minimize my chances of finish leaking under the tape. After I have the top sealed off, then I'm going to attempt to stain this board a similar color. And I just realized I got a problem with the inlay here because I can't let stain get on the inlay. I've got to finish that too. I think I've got to cut out the tape off that inlay so it gets finish on it also. Okay, I'm going to clean up here, get my tung oil varnish and put a coat on. Now I'm finishing the bottom as well as the top, and the bottom, of course, that has the same light board showing. I've taped it off too. That'll give me something to experiment on with my stains. This wood has fantastic color to it. It's too bad that one board doesn't match. Luckily, this is in the morning. I'm going to let this dry this evening. I'm going to put a second coat on it. Typically, this first coat is going to soak in a lot. I want to make sure that this wood is well sealed when I go to stain this board. So I put a second coat of varnish on the top, and the cherry looks beautiful. And now I'm going to remove this tape and see what finish maybe got under the tape. This tape left a pretty nice line. I got a really crisp lines with that packing tape, so it worked out great. Now I'm going to go over the edges with a little paint thinner and a rag, just to make sure I get rid of all the tape residue, or rather the adhesive residue from the tape. Okay, I've let the paint thinner dry completely, and now I'll start experimenting with stain on the bottom here. I'm going to start experimenting with some oil stains because they would be the easiest to deal with, you know, if I have any bleed through onto the unstained surfaces. I've got a stain here I like a lot, brown mahogany. This is a fast drying stain. Boy, that looks really good. This brown mahogany stain looks great. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this middle section of my sample side here, let it dry and put some finish on it, see what it looks like. Okay, I'm letting that set for a minute or two, and then I'm going to form the rag into a pad like this, just kind of pat it off. It doesn't seem to be affecting my the part that I've sealed off much. And I'll dip the corner of my rag in a little paint thinner and go along the outside of my line here. Okay, I've let the stain dry for a couple of hours. I'm going to put a little finish on it, see what it looks like. It's not bad, it's a little light, which is good. I can always make it a little darker if I have to. I think I'm going to go ahead and put a little more finish just in this area, let it dry, and then figure out what my next step might be if I need to make it darker. Well, it's really not bad at all. It's a good color. It could almost be a little redder and a little darker. I got to think about that for a little while it's drying. Now, even while my sample area where I put the clear finish is drying, I think I'm going to experiment a little with the stain. I'm going to take the same stain, which is an oil stain that I used on my sample area, put a little in the cup, and then I'll add a little bit of dark red mahogany dye stain, see if they'll mix together and change it a little bit. I think that in theory the dye stain shouldn't mix that well with the oil, but I'll give it a try. Let's see what happens. It doesn't look that different. Well, maybe I'll add some more. Okay, I added a lot more of the dye stain. Let's see what happens. Let this sit for a minute. You know, I don't think it looks that much different. It might though. You know, even though I thought at first it doesn't look that different, but I could be wrong. I think I'm going to do this larger area with this new stain. Let that dry and then put some clear finish on it. Okay, this second area is dried for about 45 minutes. That's the minimum amount of time for these stains, but I'm anxious to see what the color looks like. I think it looks really good. I think it looks better than the first stain. Okay, so I'm going to stain the rest of this bottom area with my second stain, and then let that dry so I can turn it over and proceed with the top. Alright, the finish on the bottom is finally dried enough for me to flip it over. And so now I've got to apply the stain to the top. That's the scary part. The thing I'm most worried about though is the inlay. I don't want the stain to influence the inlay, so I'm going to tape that off in an effort to hopefully keep the stain off of it. Now this stain looked great on the bottom. Let's see how it looks on the top. I'm going to try a little area first. Yeah, I think it looks good. I think it looks good. It's hard to tell till I put a clear coat on it, so I'll let it dry and we'll try it out. Okay, I've let the stain dry for a couple of hours. I'm going to brush a coat on. I'm going to leave the tape on until tomorrow when this first coat is dry. Okay, now that first coat of finish over my stain is dried overnight, and so now I'm going to remove the tape off the inlay, see what that looks like. Okay, that's not bad. There's a little bit of tape residue, a little bit of stain got through here. I'm going to clean this with very gently with some paint thinner to get rid of the residue. That might take care of the stain too. If not, I'll have to scrape that off. Overall, the inlay looks great. I got to deal with that stain right there. It's not really, it's coming off a little bit, but I may have to scrape it off. Okay, I'm just going to give a very light sanding. I want to start working on my little ridge that's right here, but very light. With this finish, the nice thing about this finish is it doesn't require sanding between coats, but I'm going to sand it just really lightly just before this next coat to help make it smooth and even. I've sanded the bottom as well. I'm going to put a coat on the bottom, then flip it over on a nail board and put a coat on the top. And then we'll get another real look at the color matching job. It's kind of hard to tell. It's certainly not bad, but I'm not sure how good it is either. We'll find out as we build up the finish. Now I almost forgot, I got a little touch-up I got to do there on the medallion. I'm going to use a raw umber marker. We got to touch that up with maybe a little golden oak. Now this is my stained board. Get a better idea what it looks like. Not too bad. It's always going to be different. Alright, we'll let this dry overnight. Okay, I've got a couple of good coats on this area on the board that I stained, trying to get it caught up with the rest of the table. I'm still not real happy with the way it looks. My stain was good and it's not bad, but this board just kind of always looks different. It's been stained, this other wood has not been stained. I'm checking it with my color checker card, and it's funny, in some areas with the card it looks great. In some areas it's It's obviously darker, but I feel like what it needs is a little orange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand the top really well, but the entire top. But then I'm going to tape off this board again, tape off the inlay, and I'm going to give it a coat of clear finish, but with some orange dye stain in it. As it's going on here, I think it's definitely making this board look better. Now I'm going to take this tape off so that the edge between what I just varnished and the unfinished part will flow out and soften a little bit. So now I've got to figure out exactly what I'm going to do to the base. The base kind of was the same color as the top. I think it's mahogany, bleached out mahogany, but of course I didn't realize the top was cherry. But now that the top is so much darker, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by cleaning it really well with the red pad and some commercial cleaner, like a degreaser type product, and see what I've got. Okay, I've let it dry for a couple of hours. Now I'm going to go over it with a maroon Scotch-Brite pad. Okay, I've let this toner coat on the board dry for 12 hours. It seems pretty dry. I've kept it warm in here today. I can't really tell what it's going to look like till I put a coat on the whole thing. So, yeah, I think that my toner really helped. I think it's a lot closer now to the other wood, at least from this angle. Okay, so now I've allowed this to dry overnight. I'm going to sand it down, the top and the bottom, and put what I hope is the final coat. Where I taped off the inlay along here, although I was assuming my clear coat, after I removed the tape, would help fill that in, it hasn't really filled it in completely. I need to put some varnish right in the inlay, see if I can fill up this little valley I've got there. And then I'll put this in a warm area, let it dry. Then later today, see if I can level it off. Alright, back to the base. I've cleaned it, I've abraded it with this pad. And now I'm going to try some, I have some brown mahogany stain. Same stain I used to make the tinted varnish. It looks pretty good. Let's compare it to the table. Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell with the tabletop being sanded and stuff, but yeah, it's good. I think the stain looks good. Let this dry. Okay, so I've let my little drip ins on the inlay dry for about 6 hours. I want to see if I can sand it. It's better, but I think I need to do it again. Okay, I just went over these areas lightly with a little sandpaper. I was more interested in the stuff that kind of spilled over my little canal there. Now I will do it again. Okay, so I'm still letting my little touch-up on the inlay dry. So in the meantime, I'll put a coat on the base. Now, I'm going to put a coat of the same tung oil finish, but the satin. And I still have the finish and stain that I mixed together that I used trying to save the board there. And I'm going to add some finish to this and use that. It'll have a little color to it. I think it'll look good. Okay, I'm giving this the final sanding here, and then I'll put a coat of the satin tung oil finish on the entire top. I hope that'll be the final coat. Okay, the base is dried overnight. It looks good. It's too dull though. That's because I ragged that finish. So I'm going to brush on a coat of the satin tung oil. Let that dry. Alright, so this top is dried for just about 24 hours, and it feels great. I'm going to sand it with 500 paper, and then I'm going to go over it with dry steel wool. So what I'm doing with the steel wool is I'm going over, it's getting rid of any scratch marks from the sandpaper, and I'm watching all those little shiny areas and seeing them go away, and I'm trying very hard to make it very even as possible. Okay, 45 minutes has passed, but I'm just going to clear coat this whole bottom board, and then I can let it dry and then flip this over and tackle the top. So after doing it section by section, really looking at it in this raking light to see what I've got here, and then I ease up and go over it very evenly. So now I'm going, relatively lightly with the steel wool and really concentrating on making it even. Now I'm just going to use the same piece of steel wool and some of the beeswax polish and go over it, just applying light pressure, and once again trying to do it very, very evenly. Now while I'm waiting for the polish to dry, I've got to get these battens ready to reinstall on the bottom. If you remember, they're screwed to the bottom, they hold the base. Because they're screwed cross-grained to that top, they may have caused or contributed to the crack in that top. In no way does this allow for wood movement. So what I'm going to do is each screw hole I'm going to drill, same size bit in there, but then I'm going to rack the drill back and forth like that. See if I can create enough space that it might possibly allow this top to move with the seasons. So there we go. Nice little tilt top table, cherry top, inlay. If you remember, it had a big crack in this area here. Some of this inlay was loose, I glued that down. And of course the top was so badly water damaged, I had to sand it and refinish it, but revealing this beautiful cherry top. And I also re-glued the legs down here and recoated the base with some varnish with color in it. And even though I was so concerned when I was refinishing it about this oddball board that I had to spend so much attention on, I think the end result, I think it looks pretty good.